When the staff at Amboseli National Park in Kenya noticed that their beloved elephant, Peru, was showing signs of imminent labour, they sprang into action and called the vet. This wasn't Peru's first calf. She had given birth 2 years earlier. Her first pregnancy had been a bit of a surprise since she carried small and rarely showed signs of stress or discomfort. This time, however, they detected her pregnancy early. Peru carried heavily and clumsily, almost as if she was uncomfortable in her own skin. The zookeepers decided to keep a close eye on her, ready to support her through this more challenging pregnancy. When she started pacing and trumpeting loudly, they knew the time had come. But this labour was proving to be much more difficult than the last. Peru was in agonizing pain for hours, crying out to her herd and the staff as if begging for help. Nothing seemed to soothe her. She paced as much as she could, rubbing against trees, but her labour progressed slowly, making it even harder to endure. Her cries echoed through the bush, vibrating against the nearby mountain cliffs. Predators and scavengers drew closer, hoping for an easy meal. Fortunately, Peru's herd formed a protective barrier around her. They were clearly concerned but focused on keeping any unwanted visitors at bay. The park staff stood by, anxiously waiting to see if she would survive this ordeal. The vet was ready to intervene when, suddenly, Peru went completely quiet. After a few minutes of trepidation, a scout approached to see if she had successfully birthed her baby. Peru's pregnancy this time around was long and difficult. After hours of agonizing pain and tears, she finally gave birth. The park staff, holding their breath, craned their necks to catch a glimpse of the newborn. What they saw left them in utter shock. Screams of disbelief echoed as they quickly called everyone over. Peru had birthed twins. This was almost unheard of. The last recorded instance of an elephant having twins was back in 1980. Suddenly it all made sense. Peru had been so large because she was carrying 2 little elephants instead of 1. The initial shock and excitement quickly gave way to concern. Twins are incredibly rare among elephants for a reason. Raising more than 1 young is usually too strenuous for the mother, often resulting in the weaker of the 2 being left behind. Their worries grew when they noticed how Peru's older calf was reacting to the twins. Unlike the other elephants in the herd, she seemed quite agitated by the arrival of her twin brothers. Instead of showing the behavior of a loving sister, she looked at them with a deep scowl. The staff wanted to intervene, but couldn't. The nature of working in a national park meant letting life unfold naturally, no matter how difficult it was to watch. Normally, older siblings in elephant families are warm and welcoming to their younger brothers and sisters. However, this wasn't the case here. The older sister stomped her feet near the twins and pretended to charge at them. They were barely an hour old, yet she made it clear what she thought of them. Peru was too exhausted to deal with her daughter's aggression, but luckily the herd stepped in. Elephant herds are tight-knit families, and Peru could rely on the elder members to discipline her daughter. One of the older females gently pulled the juvenile elephant away from her mother. The elder elephants and their siblings stroked the calf affectionately with their trunks, slowly calming her down. This was a huge relief for the staff, who didn't want to see the newborns hurt, especially since birth meant so much for the entire elephant community. They continued to monitor Peru, anxious to see what the twins would do next. Watching a newborn trying to stand was always such a sweet sight. They would wobble like little drunkards, unable to stand up straight. It was no different with Peru's twins. As one struggled to his feet, he seemed strong and quite sure of himself. He took a few steps forward but then collapsed onto his bottom. Determined, he moved as quickly as he could to get back up, only to fall again. His chunky stature made the staff imagine him as a future massive, domineering male. His brother, however, was having a much harder time. Struggling just to get to his feet for the first time, he tried with all his might, but his efforts weren't enough. His little head bobbed up and down as he tried to bring his feet underneath him. After half an hour he gave up, exhausted. The park rangers, watching from a distance, grew concerned. Things weren't looking good for twin number 2. Meanwhile, twin number one continued to strut along awkwardly, like any healthy newborn. He ran to his mother, moaning and touching trunks. His affectionate display was endearing to witness. Peru motioned for him to come closer and began feeding him. As she cared for him, the staff saw her anxiously looking around for her other calf. This clever elephant knew she had two babies and wanted to help the second. When Peru saw her second baby lying in the grass, she became visibly worried. Despite her exhaustion, she jumped to her feet and stumbled over to him. She nudged him with her trunk, but he didn't respond. Peru began to make noises of concern, catching the attention of the herd. They slowly approached, investigating the situation. They showed affection to twin one as they passed by, but their tone changed when they reached the lethargic twin. Their calls became low and mournful. The herd gathered behind Peru in a show of solidarity, trying to comfort her with their presence. Another mother stepped forward, leaving her own calf behind to help. Together they used their trunks to try and coax the baby onto his feet, but he hardly responded. It was clear to anyone watching that Peru and the other elephant were growing distressed. They began stamping their feet, unsure of what to do. Peru flapped her ears furiously, her frustration evident. The herd picked up on her distress, showing their own uneasiness. The park staff, helplessly watching, knew they couldn't intervene. This was how the elephants would process what was happening. The second twin seemed unable to get up, and the herd was already mourning what they likely saw as his imminent passing. After all, a wild animal that cannot walk is vulnerable, and they all knew it. But before anything terrible could happen, the little elephant finally seemed to understand. His mother and family were there for him, no matter what. They would encourage and help him in any way they could. So for the umpteenth time that day, he gathered all his strength and tried to get to his feet. He pushed and rocked himself as hard as he could, and when he finally lifted his body off the ground, something amazing happened. As he managed to lift himself slightly, he braced to fall back down again. But this time he didn't. He suddenly realized his mother had looped her trunk around his body, holding him up. Instantly excited, the little elephant kept his balance when she finally let go. Thanks to his doting mum, he stayed on his feet and took his first steps. He wasn't as fast as his brother, but he was moving. The atmosphere in the valley shifted quickly. For the first time since the twins were born, there was a sign that everything was going to be okay. The herd rejoiced triumphantly. The first and most important obstacle of their childhood had been overcome. In unison, the herd members threw their trunks in the air and let out harmonious toots, letting the whole valley know their newest members were going to be all right. The staff left the happy herd to celebrate and returned to their camp buzzing with excitement. After all, not everyone could boast about witnessing a twin elephant birth and such a display of cooperation among the herd. Back at camp, their colleagues could hardly believe what they were hearing. They thought it was a prank. But when the staff showed blurry pictures of the twins, their colleagues couldn't help but feel terribly jealous. The next day, everyone at camp insisted on seeing the sweet twin calves. Sure enough, they laid eyes on the fascinating sight, two of the tiniest elephant calves, easy to tell apart even from a distance. One of the staff members snapped a beautiful picture of the twins and posted it on social media, wanting everyone to witness the miracle of the twin birth and the close relationship between the herd members and the babies. The photo went viral beyond their wildest dreams, receiving thousands of positive comments. However, it also attracted unwanted attention. Amboseli National Park in Kenya was a popular destination for those who loved elephants, hosting over 1,600 of them. When the picture circulated on social media, everyone wanted to see the baby calves. The rare occurrence of twin elephants captivated people worldwide. While attention is usually positive for parks, it can have negative consequences. Greedy hunters and poachers love to exploit such situations. The viral pictures alerted every poacher and hunter in the area to the presence of these prized, vulnerable calves. The park had to increase its security immediately. The park was no stranger to tragedy. In 2017 alone, they had lost 10 elephant calves to diseases and traps. Poaching was a daily horror. the situation had become so dire that over 300 scouts from the local community were employed to protect the elephants. These scouts took turns patrolling the beloved land they worked and lived near. When news spread of the vulnerable twin calves, the scouts made it their mission to protect them. They spent considerable time monitoring the calves for security and well-being. Thanks to them, the increased lethargy and distress in the second twin were noticed. Initially he seemed fine, but now it was clear something was wrong. The scouts radioed the park vet and advised a visit to the newborn elephants. The following day the vet went to check on the second twin, hoping to ensure he was perfectly fine and reassure the park staff. Approaching him, however, was not an easy task. His entire family and herd surrounded him, ready to protect him from any intruders. They didn't quite understand that the vet had come with the best intentions. From afar, the doctor initially announced that the calf seemed fine, but when the little elephant began to move, it became clear that his condition was worse than they had thought. The vet grew concerned by what he saw and heard. The calf was clearly not thriving. Unfortunately, there wasn't much he could do without interfering with nature's course. He had a horrible feeling that something bad was going to happen, so he readied himself for any potential tragedy. After getting permission from the Wildlife Commission, the vet entered the area around the elephant. At first glance, it seemed the calf needed supplementary help with eating. The vet observed the little elephant for a couple of hours and became convinced that a quick shot of supplements would work wonders for his health. He carefully planned how to administer the shot and asked everyone on site to help. Then all hell broke loose. The calf, horrified at the sight of humans approaching, started running in circles on his wobbly legs. The vet needed to come closer to assess his weight and prepare the right dose of medicine. But getting close to the frightened elephant was an uphill battle. Despite the frustration, the vet realized the calf's playful running indicated he was neurologically sound and just needed physical help. Once the vet finally reached the calf, he administered the shot and encouraged the little one to keep moving. He knew that turning therapy into playdates would make the calf more eager to comply. Day by day, the vet worked with the sweet elephant until his older sister started copying his movements, taking over the role of therapist for her little brother. Though she had initially been upset by the twins' birth, she now embraced her role as an older sibling, happy to have two new playmates. Thanks to the vet and Peru's efforts, the second calf eventually caught up with his herd, becoming healthy and self-sufficient. The park got their healthy set of rare twins, and many people had the opportunity to watch them interact in their natural habitat. It was a win-win situation for everyone involved and a testament to the power of nature. What an incredible story of luck and perseverance. Have you ever seen twin animals? What would you do to protect Peru's babies from poachers and hunters? Tell us in the comments below. Thanks for watching.